Okay, welcome at this podcast of Beyond Mindfulness. I will introduce Ray and Yvan in a minute. I'm very glad that they're here. And this podcast is organized by me. I have an organization called Beyond Mindfulness to inspire people to go beyond that. And in this podcast, we will talk about. We'll see. We have a bit of freedom to go where we are, but around our spiritual journeys, about awareness, consciousness, or essence, or how you want to call it. And we'll see what we encounter ourselves, especially. I'll ask that to Ray and Yvan. And I hope you get inspired by what we have to offer. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell. I will briefly start with myself. I maybe combine that with Yvan and Ray. I've been on this path, I think, after a relationship breakup, which was a bit of a mess. I started to go to teachings of Jan Geurts, Dutch teacher. He's from the Dzogchen tradition, and then I came to know Rupert Spira, which I met Yvan and Ray. We went on quite some retreats together, and I'm still considering myself a seeker, although I do feel I have a link with my true nature, and often enough I do lose it, but so that's a bit my background in a nutshell. But the main focus will be on my two guests. I'm very happy that they are here. And let me introduce them. They send a short bio to me. Let me start with Yvan. Yvan was born in Bruges, in Belgium. He graduated in philosophy, and he holds a PhD in anthropology on the study of the models of and models for the well-being and misfortune among the. I practice this, so I hope I pronounce it right. Dashanesh tribe. Dashanesh tribe of Southwest Ethiopia. And he wrote to me, an important experience in his professional life was the chance he got to accompany vulnerable youth on long distance walks. So that sounds very interesting. He currently is teaching philosophy, ethics, and cultural studies at the University College in Ghent, in Belgium, in the Department of Social Work and Special Education. And his main interest since several years is the direct path, inspired by Rupert Spira, and he adds that more recently also the teacher of Rupert Spira, called Francis Lucille. He likes movies, comedy as good for empathy, walking, swimming, and gardening to stay grounded. I think with a smile he said that. So that's Yvan. And we'll go more into his background maybe later. But let me first welcome you, Yvan, and very glad you're here. And then I will introduce Ray. Ray, he says he has been interested in understanding himself all his life. He has a strong memory of, that was very interesting to read, a strong memory of coming from space and looking down at himself in a room being born. And he states it could be a dream, but he has living memories of being a baby, which most people do not seem to have. So when he wrote this, I thought it's interesting to share, so maybe people recognize that. He was born after the war. He grew up as a teenager in the 60s and found life confusing. And one day he found himself as a construction engineer drinking too much and decided to go on the hippie trail to Kathmandu and to New Zealand. He's smiling slightly, so he might be having stories on that. He came home lived in a cottage, he's trained as a carpenter, he got married, back in the UK. And whilst all this was going on, he started to read, or he has read many spiritual books and been involved in various religions. And he got interested in Tai Chi, and that became very important to him. He later retrained as a care worker, worked with people with mental health problems, and he ends up with saying that his spiritual search led him to Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen monk, who recently passed away, and to Rupert Spira. So we have that all in common. And he's still trying to understand life, but he's very grateful for the many people that have helped him on that path. And looking back, there has been times of depression and feeling suicidal, but today he's still searching, but as Rupert Spira would say, I quote Ray, I feel blessed. So that's, yeah. Am I introducing you correct, or do you want to add something to that?
It's fine.
It's fine, huh? Okay. Let's go into it. I was first wanted to ask something to you, Ray, because I read your bio, and maybe Yvan can comment on that. When you wrote about this last sentence, actually, that you said, like, I had moments, I don't know if I'm phrasing you right, I had moments of depression and feeling suicidal, and now you feel more blessed. What happened in the meantime?
With life, when I was younger, I was doing everything everybody else seemed to do, but I wasn't happy inside. There was something that was wrong. And at times it got to the point where I thought, well, I just don't want, it's not, it's too difficult. I don't really want to be here, but it was funny that, you know, I never ever spoke to people about, in fact, the important things in my life I've never ever spoken to anybody about until I got much older. But at the times I went to go and kill myself, the only thing that held me back was just a little thought that said, well, it might get better. And now when I think about that now, I couldn't think about it then. It was like, well, where was that voice coming from? Who was that speaking to me? And I think now, after, you know, especially with Rupert, Rupert Spira, it makes you question what exactly you're made of. The depth of your being is vast. And I think most of my life, it's been from the surface. I've been thinking, you know, how I feel. If I was anxious, that dominated. I wasn't able to step outside of that and see who's anxious. Is that really me? You know, those questions. They're the bits I'm really grateful for. That somebody pointed out that you're not trapped in this body. You can. There is freedom from it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you recognize any of that, Yvan? Or you want to comment on that?
Just the feeling I have now is that for the first question is going already so deep. Just I have a feeling of a bit of reluctance to talk about this because it's public, and I feel a bit. I don't know. I don't feel so so free to talk freely, because I know it's for a big audience.
Sure. Yeah.
I realize this. If I'm with you and you, Ray, to talk about this subject, I might do it on the floor, but now with this camera on, I feel a bit. So maybe.
Yeah, I understand that.
But I feel this for me, it's not something to put on.
No.
Anyway.
No, you don't need to.
I didn't
just curious
know before, but I will try to comment when it's a bit softer. When it's a bit, just
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Thanks for feeling where you're at and not. I was one question I will come back to later. I talked. Maybe we can go into that now. Actually, it's about honesty. Like I think Adishanti. You know Adishanti, I think, right? Yeah. So he talks a lot about honesty and to feel like where are you at and what do you feel like sharing and being close to yourself and also on the spiritual path, let's say, to see what you want to share and stuff. So I'm glad that you're honest in this and not push your own boundaries. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's another question which I do see people struggle with is also what is awareness, or what is consciousness, or what is also to get a bit of a framework what we're talking about here. Or maybe true self. I don't know how you can call it different ways. Would you like to comment on that, Yvan? Let's start with you.
Consciousness, awareness. So the way Rupert uses it and the way, I was introduced to it, and which took my life in a whole new direction. Which started to me to see myself and the world in a totally different perspective. It's hard to see it as a thing, but it's just that in which everything appears, and that's what we are. That's what we are, and that's what we share. All of us share. So, and to be there, we're always there. So it's difficult to talk about it, to explain what it is, but becoming aware of that reality has changed my life fundamentally. And there I can go back to the former question, and maybe there I can follow Ray's explanation that somehow I also feel blessed that this understanding erased a lot of confusion and gave sense and meaning to my life in this past 5-10 years, let's say. It also made me look in a much deeper way to philosophy, made the teaching of philosophy much more interesting for me and for the students. So it's a whole process.
That's interesting. I was already thinking that how it influenced your work because did it first came your work as a philosopher teacher and then the non-dual interest came? Yes. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, I think it was about 10 years ago, and I was following a course of non-duality in Amsterdam of Alexander Zollner, and I think it was in Inzicht, tijdschrift Inzicht. I saw a quote or an article of Rupert, and he was coming in that same period. He was coming to Amsterdam. I thought it was 2014. So and I was so struck by this article. It was translated in Dutch, and it was about experiences, a visual experience, auditive experience, sensation. They all appear in the same space, and suddenly, oh, I said yes, that's it. So I saw the man, and in that period, I was in a bit, a bit in a what to do with life, and it was going and so it blew up my mind, and it took my life in a totally different that direction.
Yeah.
So, what was your question again?
No, I was interested in if first the non-dual in the understanding came, or first the philosophy part. Yeah.
At that time, I thought, because looking for studying philosophy is, of course, there was a seeker in me. There was a from philosophy it went to anthropology. Anthropology maybe is maybe another way of looking, asking the same question, who am I, by looking to other people. And if you look to similar people, maybe you don't see so much as you look to totally different people, as those I met in Africa. But anyway, then you come back here, and it was flat. My lessons were flat, and because of this insights, and looking back to Socrates, looking back to Spinoza, looking back to Plato, everything got a new depth. So it was wonderful to, and it still goes on like that. It still goes on, and I with my students too. But now I talked enough. It's Ray.
Beautiful. No, I like it, and it's so I like the fact that you're saying it's ongoing, right? It doesn't. I don't know how Ray sees that, but it's an ongoing process, right? Mm-hmm. It's deepening and deepening in your work. Beautiful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ray, would you like to comment on that, or?
Well, I think the question was awareness or consciousness. Yes, I did have had moments where I've become aware that there's somebody else, it's me, and there's somebody else kind of talking to me, who's myself as well, and I think. At those times when I was younger, if I could have spoken to somebody who understood, but of course there was never anybody to talk to. I can remember when I was a teenager, and I went in the library, and I didn't really read much at all when I was young. And I picked up a book called The Prophet. You probably know, it's so famous. And I took it home, and I kind of hid it from my parents, because I thought they just won't understand this, but I was attracted to it. It was making sense to me. It was going what is referred to as going a bit deeper, And I suppose that's when it starts, isn't it? You all the time I've been trying to figure out, what is this life about? Why this and that? But there was nobody really to ever talk to, not in my life. I mean, the world's changed an awful lot. Yeah. And I was brought up in a kind of a very working class area. It wasn't... There wasn't things like yoga or Tai Chi going on not when I was very young. It did start to happen, and there were books that you could start. The 60s really was an enormous time for change, and it all came on so much. That's why I said I was a bit confused with it. You know, the Beatles were going meditation, and there was Indian religions coming in, and people were taking LSD and reaching wonderful heights. And, you know, of course, my experience, the real experience going on, was a bit different. It wasn't what you read in the newspapers. It was just life was going on. I was having to find work and mix with ordinary people. So anyway, I'm getting lost. But the question of consciousness awareness.
Yeah.
I don't think it really started happening to I considered non-dual things. Got into that practice of non-dual. There was a period when I was very young and I couldn't cope, and I'd say to my parents, I don't want to go to school. And my method was to close down, not to talk, not to say anything, just to be there. And they would say, oh, let him stay at home. And they'd worry, well, it's like, who's going to look after him and that. But I realise now, looking back, that was my method of closing down. Everything was closing down. I didn't want to think. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sit like in blank, really.
Yeah.
I didn't understand, but I just wanted to switch off. And they went off to work. My brother went to school, and I just sit there completely blank. I just wanted to get away from the world. And of course, that had its negative connotations that I didn't realize, that I was running away from the world. I was admitting I couldn't cope with the world. And
what age are you here?
Well, I suppose I wouldn't have been allowed would I have been allowed not to go to junior school? Maybe even junior school age.
Yeah, okay.
I'd already got thrown out of the infant school. They found me too difficult. I was a bit disruptive. Although, of course, people didn't understand that those days. They just thought I was being really awkward. But I wasn't. I was trying to be understood. But it just wasn't there. And again, there was nobody to talk to who would understand my language. So you just carry on, don't you? You do your best. But of course, where I am now, speaking to you both, that's why I say I feel blessed. I think, Christ, it's all gone, and I'm only looking forward to things. There's so many wonderful books. There's so many wonderful people. I don't mind what happened. That's what Krishnamurti said. I don't mind what happens. I'm not the same as him, of course, but on a different level, I speak those words as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a lot more difficulties. So where maybe Krishnamurti thought he got out of difficulties, I don't know. I don't know those things.
And how would you phrase awareness or consciousness? How would you explain that in a few sentences?
Well, I've really, my understandings come so from Rupert. It's so simple. I just am here. I'm just being. You know, those words. I did your this idea. This made me think a lot, and there were some words. I always remember of Tagore. I always forget his first Rabindranath Tagore. I read years ago, and he said, in the beginning, at the beginning of creation, the question was asked, who art thou? Who art thou? And the reply was silence. And then it said, aeons passed, time went past it. And at the end, or maybe it didn't say that, but at the end it said, the same question was asked, who art thou? And it was silence again. You see that I understand that, meaning that if I say to myself, who are you? It, in the end, after I try and work it out, it comes back to silence. I don't know. And the remarkable thing then, you think, well, if I don't know, nobody else does. They're all pretending. They're all pretending they know who they are. And none of us do. It's just something unexplainable. And I don't think that I'd have ever understood that unless I'd gone through Rupert's teachings. I really don't.
No. So would you say like silence is I think Ramana Maharshi talks a lot about that right? Like if you really what did he say? Help me a bit. Like he was saying, I think in the real teaching is just sitting in silence with him and not needing words to explain that. That sounds like it's, and also I think Yvan was saying it's not so easy to explain it because it's something you experience and you feel. Am I right?
I can remember I had a dog, a lovely dog, a lurcher, and sometimes I'd be sitting with her, and I just felt pure love for this dog. I was just feeling pure love. I don't no words because the dog can't talk, and it was just pure enjoyment. Because you can't. How can you put that? You can. What you don't even want to tell anybody about it, really. But how can you express that? It's just. You know, if it's not a dog, I mean, it could be a person. And, you know, sometimes you just enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
The same as I'm enjoying your company.
Yeah.
And if I tried to put it in words, it would diminish it. It would make it not as good as it really is.
Yeah.
And so there's no point in doing it. And when you talk about your own being and you're in touch with it, it's the same thing. You're just enjoying being. You just, I am. Oh, Christ, where's that come from? That's really wonderful. You've gone inwards rather than looking for enjoyment in the outside world. You're enjoying your own being. Yeah,
beautiful. And I wanted to ask you something about I was wondering about that quite a bit. Like sometimes some teachers really talk about the non-dual understanding, really knowing who you are as the main course. But sometimes when we deal with emotions or traumas, but some teachers do quite explicitly things with emotions and letting go and all these kind of things. So I was wondering, how do you see that? Do you, maybe it's a middle way how you go about that, or not? It's something I sometimes struggle with, because I one of the things I really taught from Rupert, and I really I'm so grateful for that. He always told me, like, I asked a lot of questions about fear. Maybe you even remember that I asked that, and he told me always, like, don't go into all the different fears, because you will be busy your whole life. Check who is the one who is being afraid, and investigate that. That was very powerful. But at the same time, there also seemed to be a logic to go through some emotions in whatever way you want to. So does my question make sense to you, Ray and Yvan?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Who likes to go into that first? Okay, Yvan.
First, would like to come back to the former question.
Okay, sure.
Because when Ray was talking about awareness, which is difficult, I share it, but you somehow summarized and you said, oh, it's something you experience and feel. And I would say, no, it's not something you experience and feel, because everything you experience and feel appears in awareness. But the best definition I heard, if you call it a definition, I got recently from Francis, the teacher of, and I find it's the most open definition, and it's very simple. He defines awareness as the reality, whatever this may be, the reality which is hearing these words which we speak. So that's it. The reality, whatever this may be, which is hearing these words. So that was his. But if you say it's something you experience, no, it's not something you experience, because everything you experience and feel, it appears in awareness. Anyway, so that was to come back because there were.
Yeah, but thanks for clarifying that. And yeah. Thanks.
But then, the question on how to deal with trauma, I think all of us, most of those who seek, that somehow we all have we're all, and maybe all people, we all have to deal with trauma and how you say kwetsuren, anyway.
I don't know, difficult emotions? No, that's not what you're saying.
Yeah, to be hurt in childhood or whatever.
Yeah.
Coming to this direct path, yes, sometimes you feel okay, that's the way, but then within the direct path they often talk about spiritual bypassing, and I think we all also experience that, that's
only
to be in this state, but then and you still suffer a lot with past traumatic experience, and actually the first question I was so reluctant because I'm going through a period. My father is dementing, and I've been a close how we say observer or be even confronted with this process of, but also with his own traumas which came up, and my own childhood experiences with him. So yeah, it's very double. So in a way you feel the blessings of this teaching, but then you feel also there's still so much burden inside. And then if you listen, sometimes you listen to Rupert and then you think, oh, it's for him it's so easy because he never had traumas. He doesn't know what it is. So for me it's still a confusion. It's still confusing. Huh? So in one way I believe, okay, just all these traumas, all these things, they just happen and leave them and go beyond it. Go what, as you say, beyond mindfulness, go beyond them, and just they appear. And if you touch their whatever, this is not you. but in reality, it pulls me down, and often it can take me out of how you say of happiness, to use it.
Yeah.
It's I don't have a middle way. I'm just
You're going
yeah
left or right.
Yeah. In a way, this I with one of the other students of Rupert, he introduced me into this ayahuasca community in Holland, and that's actually the same. How in a way I sometimes think, first, these big traumas, they have to be cleared, and then there will be freedom. And on the other hand, I say no, it's not needed. But the teaching of Rupert is, you don't need to clear anything. Mm-hmm. And for some, it's truth, and they get it. And for others like me, it's double, very double. Mm-hmm. It was just yesterday I was looking it up, but I didn't find it. Some people say it was in discussion on Facebook about one of the new books of Rupert, and then people say, but he's neo-Advaita. He just like the other guy here. You told me about the other guy from England too, who was very sick last year or 2 years ago. Also a teacher, non-dual teacher. You remember when I was in Amsterdam with you?
With me, Mark, or with Ray?
Yeah, you, Mark.
Yeah, okay.
What's his name?
You come back to that.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. But also then he always in his past years he was open and
Jeff Foster, is that the
Jeff
one?
Foster? Yeah, and then he became sick, and then all this how you say devils they came up. It was terrible.
Mm.
And then I say, when is deep enough? When do you face all these monsters?
And when to leave them?
For Rupert, it's just be aware, and they come up to the surface. It's very easy, and then I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't believe it anyway. But
it's nice. It's nice to share, because it's something I resonate with. That it's sometimes difficult to see where, because I did the first time my ayahuasca thing also to go a bit deeper into things in the past, and that was interesting. But I recognize your story. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Ray, would you like to go into the same question, or maybe continue on something Ray was saying, of Yvan was saying?
First of all, what Yvan said about Francis Lucille saying that sort of thing, of course, Ramana Maharishi, he's said the same. I've read the same thing. I've got confused, and then he kind of is able to go to a step further back, and then you understand. But without people like that saying those things, you just wouldn't do it. Or I wouldn't. But yeah, the question of suffering, I tend to go to sort of say, well, what there is now, whatever it is, if it's the one reality, then it's perfect. It might not appear to be perfect because we suffer, but then I go to the point and say, well, the suffering is there almost like a medicine. The suffering is there to because I tend to say to myself, I'm going in the wrong direction, therefore I'm suffering. Try a different direction, try a different way of thinking, a different way of behaving. So, but I kind of, if I can get it in my head, that to say that this whatever it is, which is completely nondescript, the reality, you can't describe it in any way, it's already perfect. We're already there. There is, like some teachers tell you, there is no enlightenment, or there is no, you can say anything, there is no birth, no death, there's nothing. It's just perfection. Are you able to understand that with the mind? Probably not. And that's where the confusion comes in. Because the mind and life in telling you that this is awful. It's like this war in Ukraine. It's awful. It's terrible. There's no denying it. So where are my words then saying that this is perfection? This whole creation is perfection. And of course that question is as old as the hills, as they say, you know, and that is where the concept of a devil got born, came in. Oh, all the bad things, well, we'll pass them on to the devil, and all the good things we'll pass on to God. But of course, when I was younger, I got hold of that, and I thought, yeah, but what about the bit in the middle? Who's going to decide where to draw the line? Nobody can. Well, it's suffering. The whole thing, everything you can possibly think of, is a mixture of a reality. Some we call it. We had to put a word to it. We call it reality. And we are that. And you can't understand it. I said, I'm going to end there, because I said, all I can say is, I can't understand it. And I've never met anybody who can put it into words that satisfy me anyway.
Yeah. And do you have any, yeah, maybe it's not the right question for you, but do you feel, how would you advise people to go about it? Like in a more practical way?
You've definitely
depends on the person, but yeah.
You've definitely got to be on a so-called spiritual path. You've definitely got to say, I want to get to the bottom of this, even though I don't know how. It reminds me of the Lord of the Rings, where Frodo says, I will take the ring. And they all look at him as if, how are you going to do it? How the hell are you going to do it? You can't do it by yourself. But he just said, I'm going to do it. And it's like, I think this is the same. It's like, I don't know what seekers are aiming. Maybe they're aiming for happiness. I mean, lots of teachers will tell you that, the goal is happiness. But I personally, I look at that as, yes, there is happiness in the end, but it's almost, I say, as a bonus. The real thing for me to go searching, it's just, I haven't got any choice. It's almost like this reality is drawing me and saying, you're going to go this way now. You ain't got any choice. You've been going the wrong way so many times, and you're fed up with it. You're going to go this way, and I'm being drawn to it. I don't know. I'm allowing I suppose, if anything, I would say that's it. The human being at some point gives themselves permission to seek the truth, to seek happiness. You have to do it. You have to do that bit yourself. You have to say, I'm going to go in the direction of, I mean, if you say God, then it's not quite right, because you say I'm going in the direction of good. Well, it's not. And that's why Rumi says beyond wrongdoing and right doing. It's just words start failing. I can't.
Yeah.
Words.
Thanks for that. So it just to understand it, is there also a bit of trust in that? Trusting the process in a way? Could I phrase it that way?
Yeah. And I think
somehow follow that what you're saying, that pull.
If it wasn't seeing other people like yourselves who are seekers, and other people, like you can look at Ramana and you just look in his face and you think that man has got something that I would love. He's just full of love. And so that gives you the strength then. That gives you the strength to say, I'm going in that direction.
Yeah.
You know, you look at, there's so many directions you can look at in life, and you know damn well I'm not going in that direction. But some people do.
Yeah.
Some people do. I don't want to say anything on the script to run any particular person down, but it dumbfounds me when I think some people think that a particular person is the bee's knees, and to my mind, they're a waste of space.
Yeah,
and that's a horrible thing to say, and I shouldn't say it, but they're not a waste of space. They're the ones that enable you to make that choice. They're the ones who give you this, say, they're more confused than I am. So they're not a waste of space. And it's a horrible thing I said. I take it back.
Thanks for sharing that. Yvan, would you like to comment on that before I go to another topic, or?
Did you ask to have some prescriptions? To some?
Yeah, because it might people might look for how can I go about this, and find their own ways, and yeah.
I would say I saw that many of the teachers are very, very keen on giving prescriptions or talking about themselves, because it's like what Ray says, there are hundreds and ways and thousands. I think the way is not a choice. You're just triggered and pulled and fall and stand up again, and it's not a choice. It's just happening. But I wouldn't prescribe or say try this or try this. It's just for me, it's trial and error, or it's just it's even not a choice. It's okay. I can describe it, and afterwards I can make it out of the story, and then. But for the moment, I don't have any advice.
No, so the advice would be maybe not to go into much advice. Is that saying?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and maybe also you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a bit what I was saying to Ray, it's like allowing of the process, even stepping away and let the process do its thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. If there is a process,
okay.
Yeah.
We get stuck in words now.
Anyway, but yeah.
Okay, I come close enough. Okay.
But a process, it implies somebody who has an idea,
A
process is something mostly which has a goal also, but.
Yeah, it's not what I meant. It's more like awareness takes over, let's say. Okay, we just allow that to happen and to fall into it and stumble, and that's a bit what I heard.
Yeah. it's a bit what Rupert and Francis also say. Anyway, or what also Ray said. Anyway, whatever happens, if you suffer, that's also suffering is a pull towards. Towards, so that's it. If you go to the left side, and you should go to the right side, where you go to the left side until you get something on your nose, and then you will turn. But whatever. But if somebody says you go to the left side, to the anyway, it's for me. It's really
So suffering is a pull. What were you saying that?
Yeah, suffering.
Yeah, that's a nice way of saying that. Yeah. Great. Okay, cool. I like this. Is there, I was wondering on, that maybe relates to this. Maybe I remember my first retreat with Rupert, there was, I'm there, and I also saw some videos about it when there was I think there was a guy from Spain, very passionate about wanting to find it, because we're a bit on that trail now, wanting to find it and to have it. And maybe you remember that. I never forgot that moment. And he was so frustrated. And I also recognized myself certain moments in my, since that retreat, like, okay, where is it? And how can I
was it in Le Moulin? Where was it?
In Buckland Hall.
I was in Buckland Hall.
Yeah.
That was not the first one, because you were in...
My first one. I don't know. It might be your third or next one. I don't know. But so that must be 2016 or 17 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
If I'm correct. Anyway, so that's something also maybe interesting, because we tend to grab it, right? We try to get it, and I think one of the things I get from both of you is to, don't try to find a goal, or don't try to grab it too much, or but still it's a question I want to put forward, because it does happen, or it does happen to me still. So do I need to elaborate, or am I making...
No, I understand it.
Okay.
I think the last maybe years I get it, what they say. So the more you try to grab it, the further you go away from it. And the reason for that is simple, because you're already it. You're already it. So if you want to grab it, there is an I who wants to grab it outside. He puts it outside, and once you see it, you lose it. Once you see it, you say, okay, I drop this want, or this need to, because there's not something there. It's just, there's always this movement. You always have to return. So there's nothing. That's a bit maybe also my answer to the former question about be careful to ask for advice or prescription. Because you put it out of it, and it's just relaxation inside. So there's, once you say I want to grab it, you create a
duality. Right.
You create a duality.
Yeah.
That's a short answer.
Okay, thanks. We like that too. Ray, what about you? You want to add something to that? Sorry.
It reminds me of Papanjia. He went to, as I've read, he went to Ramana, and he said, show me, I want to find the face of God. Can you show me the face of God? And Ramana said, I can, but will you be able to see it? It's all the time. It's these teachers throw it back on you, or what I would say, the important teachers, the ones that I should follow. They throw the question back at you, because ultimately it's you that's got to answer it. It's you that's got to be completely and utterly honest with yourself. Devastatingly honest with yourself, because the ego is playing trick after trick after trick, and you have to learn to be totally honest, and as I was saying, like this ego, it appears that it separated itself from the one truity. It seems to have separated itself. And of course, that's the problem, because that's where the suffering arises. Because the suffering arises and says that's not true. It cannot possibly separate itself from, nothing can separate itself from the reality. So the suffering is like, it just automatically rises. In other words, it says, no, come back. You're going to, I'm going to make you suffer more and more until you finally come back. Until you finally see the one reality. And there was a funny thing I said. I used to go to a Quaker meeting, and I said once, because a Quaker meeting, you can stand up and say whatever you like. And I said, even if we managed to go to heaven and sat in front, beside God, I said, who is it going to be there? Who's going to be sitting beside God? Of course, it's the same one, isn't it? It's just you. And unless you're really honest with yourself, you'll still be in the same mess. And Ramana says that as well. He says, yeah, you can do this, you can do that, you can do the other. He said, eventually, it'll come down to, and who are you? And who am I? Eventually, it will come back to that question, who am I? Yeah. And we might as well go straight there. If you understand that much as a seeker, I would say, you might as well go straight there and save all the nonsense and say, ask yourself the question, who am I? And what then they're going to say, well, what's the answer? I don't know.
No.
Or do I? Oh, yes, I do know the answer. The answer is what the answer is, isn't it? We all know the answer.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, thanks. I was just checking if you still something bubbling up, but yeah.
No.
Yeah, thanks for that. Are we still good for one or two questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were several things I was thinking about. Yeah, I have to think of Yvan for this, because when I was preparing, I remember sometimes I wrote in my Facebook messages or something about letting go. And do you remember, Yvan, that you sometimes wrote, no, Mark, it's not about letting go. And it's something about not holding on. And I do get that, but it's an interesting topic because it's very much used, at least in when I give mindfulness trainings and these kind of things. So it might be an interesting topic to comment on, even if it's briefly. Maybe start with you, Yvan. You remember that we discussed that, right?
Yeah, I think the answer is a bit the same as the former question, I think.
Okay.
Because it's, I don't know, but the how you say, the prescription let go is how it implies that there's somebody who has to let go. So again, there is a duality there.
Yeah.
So yeah, again,
okay.
I think it's a bit, it's a bit the same. So maybe I just pull on it because it's an important insight for myself, and I think people use often. You can say, it's just a way of speaking, and it's difficult. But in this way of speaking, we how we say we hold on to a duality. It's yeah, and that's a bit that's a bit the problem with mindfulness. I think and the confusion we meet with a lot of people, seekers also. They confuse awareness with the ego, with the mind. And yeah, there's a discussion between mind and mind, but I think there's a discussion between awareness and minds. So yeah, anyway, I'm somehow very sensitive to this, and because I recognize it in myself, and I also recognize it easily in others. So where they confuse consciousness with mind.
Yeah, I bring it up because it helped me. It helped me to think indeed, like how am I phrasing it? How am I actually feeling it in that sense? And then, yeah, so thanks for that. And I think it relates indeed also what Ray was saying, to come back home instead of you are letting go. So yeah, that helps. Maybe I give you for the last question some space for you to say something. Maybe you want to bring a topic in, or some space for you, what you like to share for the last minutes of this podcast. Is there anything that came up in the conversation you still want to come back to, or you like to bring in?
Well, in the introduction, you said maybe it's something interesting which I will come back to. That was this experience, or the job with walking with how you say, with vulnerable kids to some support. And why this was important for me also. Relating back also to this spiritual bypassing. In a way, it holds you down, but for me, these guys were a mirror for myself. They also have to deal with trauma, and more trauma than me, but just they were not as lucky as I was. So they fell on the wrong side. They suffer a lot, and then they came in contact with criminality and so on. They were, so, and then they're put in jail and so on, and goes on and on and on and on. But this is happening with us in the same way. So there's for me such a strong mirror, and it's important not only to read books and to meditate, but just to be in the world with other people who suffer, and to stay grounded and rooted in this reality. So that was a comment, because you referred to it.
And how did it keep you grounded and rooted?
How? First of all, just the walk, but then also to see, this, it's easy to go up to the spirit, but there's this whole lot of shit which is there, and this shit was in me. You see it also in them, but you also see how just by walking and just by being in nature, how softly they open up. They open up. It takes months, but they open up. So but how it happens, I don't, just because just because there's some connection with each other, some connection with nature, and in a way you talking about process, it's more connection with yourself. It's you. I don't know. Moments of beauty, moments of happiness, moments of sharing. They all bring you back automatically to this unity. And when it happens. So that's
beautiful. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So you don't have to sit on a sofa or on a cushion.
Yeah. No, go into the world.
Closed.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, thanks. Ray, is there anything else you like to comment on or share with us or with the listeners?
Well, you did email me and say, I want to share a few poems.
Yeah, that would be great.
I
Yeah.
want to share a few poems, but with this letting go, one of the first poems I wrote, I didn't write these poems till I was much older. It came in my sleep, and I woke up and I wrote it down, and then in the morning I looked at it and thought, oh, that's okay, that's good. And it was that one was about letting go. Really, it was each day my castle changes back to sand, and it reminded me, like, well, you know, you're on the beach as a kid and you build castles, and then of course the tide comes in, and the castle's gone, and you go home, and it's like every day. This for me, every day, ideally anyway, is a process of letting go. I build up this description of the world and myself, and then it closes down again, and those poems help me to yeah. There was one more poem about it.
Beautiful, Ray, this, right, Yvan? Yeah.
There's a little
Go on. Yeah.
You probably all know these anyway. Beside the path, a blue flower, a small fragment fallen from the sky. It's a way of saying that the little things around us have come from a much vaster intelligence. We don't understand them, but they're all part of a much vaster intelligence. And we are it. It's. I think, if anything to say about a seeker, is that you kind of got to talk yourself into seeing that this is a remarkable existence. You might not think it, but you've got to talk yourself into it. You've got to be helped with a teacher. You've got to be helped with other people. But instead of seeing that this, it's just this, just that, it's not. It's something incredible. And you've got to find it for yourself somehow.
Beautiful. Yeah, shall we? I'm inclined to leave it with that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, both of you. If there are any questions for listeners after this podcast, do let me know, and then maybe I can even pass it along to them. It was a joy to have you both here, and very, very grateful for your sharing. And if you feel like you're and any topics you want to bring in as a listener, as a seeker, let me know, and I'll happy to come back to it in the next podcast. And I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.